What if I told you that the single solitary barrier standing between you and everything you dream of achieving, whether it's wealth, a relationship, or a career milestone, is simply your own inability to imagine that you already possess it? Let me explain what I mean, because this is the fundamental flaw in how most people approach their goals. The other day, I was listening to a young man talking about his ambitions. He was passionate, and he said, "My ultimate dream is to buy a Porsche." He spoke about it like it was the Holy Grail, this distant, shiny object at the top of a mountain. That statement caught my attention, so I looked him in the eye and asked him a very specific question. I said, "Can you imagine yourself right now, in this very moment, driving that Porsche? Can you genuinely feel the weight of the steering wheel, the smell of the leather, the sound of the engine as you pull into your garage?" Do you know what he answered? He looked down and said, "No, I can't." He admitted that he couldn't even mentally simulate the reality of owning that car. To him, the Porsche was a concept, a poster on a wall, a fantasy. It was not a reality he could inhabit. And right there, that is the problem. How can he possibly conquer something if he cannot imagine himself having it today? This is where the disconnect happens. Most people are trying to get to a destination that their internal GPS doesn't believe exists. If your mind rejects the image of you living that life right now, if it feels foreign or impossible to your imagination, you will never get there. You cannot hold in your hand what you cannot hold in your mind. You might say you want it. You might work hard for it. But if you cannot close your eyes and feel the reality of it as if it were happening this second, you have built a wall that no amount of hard work can climb over. You are trying to travel to a place that, to your subconscious, is completely off the map. Let's look at another example. This is actually a challenge I want to give you. I want you to open a real estate website or an app for selling luxury homes. Go there and look for a home for yourself. Just look for a house. Here is what 99% of people do immediately, without even thinking about it. They open the site, and the very first thing they do is go to the price filter. They start doing mental math. They say, okay, if I scrape together all my savings, if I sell my current car, if I cash out my 401k, and if I get a 30-year mortgage, I think I can afford a place for maybe $400,000. So they set the filter maximum to $400,000. Do you see what just happened? You just trapped yourself. It is logical, of course, to think about what you can pay for today. But by doing that, you have guaranteed that you will never leave the bracket of the $400,000 reality. You will never buy the $1.5 million home. You will never even see the $10 million estate. Why? Because you cannot even bring yourself to look at it. You cannot imagine yourself scrolling through those listings because you don't believe you belong there. It doesn't fit in your mind. The idea that one day you could conquer something that massive feels like a delusion to you, so you filter it out. And because you filter it out, you never conquer it. Everything is a matter of mental programming. Your brain has been coded, likely since you were a child, with a series of commands, like computer prompts, based on scarcity. These commands tell you, be realistic, don't aim too high, look at what you have in the bank before you dream. So your cerebral frequency, your personal vibration, is locked into a specific bandwidth. It's set to survival mode, or just getting by mode. And unless we change that input, that frequency isn't going to go up. It won't budge an inch. I know this might sound harsh, but it is the reality. You cannot catch a signal that you refuse to tune into. I've been talking a lot recently about how the universe is fundamentally vibrational. It responds to your vibration. And the way reality works is that two frequencies must enter into resonance to interact. They have to match. Your mind possesses an immeasurable power to create reality, not because it is magic, but because it is a frequency receiver. It functions exactly like a radio device. And just like a radio, it will attract absolutely every type of situation, experience, and person that matches the quality of its own broadcast. Now, I want to be very clear about something. When I talk about this, I am not saying that a wealthy person has a higher vibration than a poor person. Not at all. We need to get rid of this idea of high and low vibration in a moral sense. These two people simply have different vibrational patterns. It doesn't mean one is worse or better than the other. In reality, vibration works more like a radio selector dial. Let me give you a concrete example. Let's say you want to listen to the Antenna 1 station. You grab your radio and you tune the frequency to 94.7. The moment you do that, you start hearing that specific broadcast. Now imagine another person is sitting in the car right next to you, stuck in the same traffic, at the exact same location, but they tune their dial to 89.1. They are listening to a rock station. Is the rock station better than the other station? No. They are just different stations carrying different information. But here is the catch. If you are tuned to 94.7, you physically cannot hear the music playing on 89.1. It is invisible to you. It doesn't exist in your reality. This is why you see people who are born into wealth, the silver spoon scenario, who sometimes lose it all, but then they manage to bounce back and make millions again. And then you see people born into a community with fewer resources, surrounded by financial struggle, who find it incredibly difficult to break that ceiling. Of course, this is a generalization, and the external environment plays a massive role. If you don't have the knowledge to change the dial, your environment will mold your frequency for you. It presets your radio to the station you grew up in. It is much harder for a person to leave a situation of extreme scarcity and prosper compared to someone who was born with access to a stimulating environment. But it happens. We see cases of people who do it. Why? Because their mental programming is different. They somehow figured out how to turn the dial. They realized that they weren't stuck on that station forever. So, understand this. Your mind creates your reality because it is tuning into a specific band of reality. If you want to change the music, you have to stop staring at the speaker and start turning the knob. Now, you might be thinking, that sounds great, but my dial feels stuck. And you're not wrong. Neuroscientists have actually found that for most people, the region of the brain responsible for wealth generation is dormant. It's asleep. But recently, a fascinating 9-word prayer was discovered in an ancient text that essentially wakes this region up. It acts like a master key. Instead of struggling for years to raise your vibration through sheer willpower, this simple 10-second daily ritual forces your brain to tune into that frequency of abundance automatically. It sounds strange, I know, but the results people are seeing, manifesting money sometimes in as little as 24 hours, are undeniable. If you want to know exactly what those 9 words are and how to activate this billionaire loophole in your own brain, I've linked a special video that explains it all. You can scan the QR code on the screen right now with your phone camera, or just click the link I've pinned at the very top of the comments section below. Do not ignore this step if you feel like you're fighting against your own mind. Now, aside from that internal shift, how do we physically turn that knob in the real world? I would say that there are 2 main ingredients for anyone who wants to prosper: the mind and the environment. These are the two things that most heavily influence your results. What I'm about to tell you might sound simplistic or even a little silly, but it is the absolute truth. If you want to conquer something, you must imagine what it would be like if you already had it. And I don't mean just thinking about it, I mean simulating it without resistance. Let's go back to the dream of buying an apartment. Maybe you don't have the money right now. Maybe you are renting or living with family. That's fine. But I want you to imagine, what would it be like if you were living in that dream apartment today? Imagine it with detail, rich, sensory detail. So the first thing you have to do is find the apartment you actually want, not the one you can afford, the one you want. Go online, search for it, find the one that makes your heart beat a little faster. And here is the critical step. Once you find it, schedule a visit. Yes, schedule a visit. Act as if you are going to buy that property. When you go there and visit, you are activating the power of the environment. You are physically stepping into the reality of your dreams. You are walking through the door with your own feet. You are touching the countertops with your own hands. You are smelling the air in that hallway. You are feeling how the sunlight hits the living room floor in the afternoon. You are having a conversation with the doorman or the concierge as if it were just another Tuesday in your life. When you do this, you are forcing your receiving mind to synchronize with the radio frequency of that property. You are giving your brain a reference point. Before the visit, the apartment was a fantasy. After the visit, it is a memory. And once you tune into a new vibration, once you step onto a new rung of the ladder, there is no going back. There is a phrase that says, once the mind expands to a new dimension, it can never return to its original size. When you see it, you cannot unsee it. From the moment your mind interprets that environment as possible, as something real that you have physically experienced, it abandons the old vibrational station. It tunes into the new one. And this is where the magic happens. Suddenly, a job offer appears. A proposal for a partnership lands in your inbox. An inheritance comes through, or an investment pays off. Your business starts selling more. It feels like magic, but it isn't. It is simply that your receiver is finally tuned to the channel where those opportunities were always broadcasting. You just couldn't hear them before because you were tuned to the station of, I can't afford that. If you start paying attention to how financially successful people organize their lives, you'll notice something interesting. You will be impressed by how much they value the word access. For everything you want to conquer in life, you need to access a new vibrational station. This is why you see people who are prospering making very specific choices. They might choose to live in a specific condominium, even if it stretches their budget. They might start playing a specific sport, like golf or tennis, or get involved in motorsports. They begin to dress in a certain way or communicate with a different vocabulary. All of this serves one purpose, to find the access key to what they want. Now, I talk a lot about money here, but this principle applies to everything. It applies to the relationships you desire, your physical health, your spirituality, your emotional state. It applies to everything. But I focus on money for a very specific reason. Money is responsible for the first two fundamental layers of Maslow's hierarchy of needs: physiological needs and safety. You need money to eat quality food. You need money to have a secure roof over your head and a warm bed to sleep in. You need money to clothe yourself and ensure your family is safe. We live in a capitalist society. That is the water we swim in. We need to prosper to guarantee the basics for ourselves and the people we love. There are people online who talk about vibration and money in a very detached, airy-fairy way. They sort of trip out on the philosophy and imply that a wealthy person is somehow spiritually superior because they have a higher frequency. Let me be blunt, that is nonsense. That is fake news often used to sell courses to vulnerable people. No one vibrates higher in a spiritual sense just because they have a bigger bank account. Spiritual elevation and financial frequency are two very different things. However, I need to talk about money to liberate you, once and for all, from the prison of the matrix, which is capital. Do not think that what I am teaching is a fairy tale. No, you need discernment here. I am teaching you how to stop letting the system, the matrix, crush your life. Think about it. How many relationships fall apart because of financial stress? How many people are suffering right now, developing anxiety and depression simply due to a lack of money? I spent years suffering from financial scarcity. I know exactly what that feels like. And when I understood how this mechanism works, how to access that frequency, my vibration changed. And literally, from one year to the next, I began to prosper. I went from a crushing debt, owing huge amounts of money for years, to generating that same amount multiple times over with incredible ease. And I didn't do it by selling courses on how to get rich. It was quite the opposite. I applied these principles to my real business, to my real life. There are people who are essentially hackers of this reality. You see them. A person will go into a luxury shopping mall, walk into a designer store, and try on a handbag they have no intention of buying that day. They touch it, they smell the leather. They walk through the VIP parking lot and feel that one of those cars could be theirs. They know how to access that reality before they have the receipt. And inevitably, because they are comfortable there, they eventually access it permanently. I mention luxury items because some people enjoy that. I personally don't care much for it. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe your version of this is a cabin in the woods or a top-tier camera for your photography. It doesn't matter what the object is. What matters is, are you settling for a mediocre life? Are you telling yourself, this is good enough, just because you are afraid to look at what you really want? If you are, you need to access that environment, because if you don't access it mentally and physically, you will never possess it materially. When I talk about high values or big dreams, understand that I mean simply, it is possible. Sometimes our mind gets stuck believing it can only achieve the small things. It looks at a tiny circle and says, this I can do, this medium thing, maybe if I exhaust myself and work 20 hours a day. But that big thing? No, that's not for me. That's for heirs. That's for people who already have money. That's for the elite. That is the wall I want to smash in your head right now. To the universe, there is absolutely no difference between what you consider small and what you consider huge. It does not care if you want $1, $2, or $1 million. The mechanics of attraction are exactly the same. The difficulty is entirely a fabrication of your own resistance. And this leads me to the most critical part of this process, the trap. This technique of access that I am teaching you guarantees the vibrational part of the equation. You visualize, you visit the environment, you tune the radio. Then things start to happen. You access a new vibration. You align by resonance with that new environment, and opportunities start jumping into your lap. You will have to embrace these opportunities, because this is where the herd gets left behind. A person does the work, makes the access, and when the opportunity actually appears, they freeze. The shadow comes in. The psychological defense mechanism kicks in. The person thinks, oh, but this job requires me to wake up at 5 a.m. I'm not a morning person. Or, I won't accept work on the other side of the city. The commute is too long. Or, this isn't exactly my area of expertise. I might fail. Do you see what is happening? The moment the human being accesses a new level, if they do not have the knowledge I am giving you right now, their shadow, their subconscious fear, will inevitably appear. It will give you a fantastic logical justification to say no. It will try to sabotage you to keep you safe in the old familiar frequency. This is the mechanism of the human mind. It is a biological reaction to the unknown. Everything happens because of a limiting belief. So the process is, you must clean, 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 and clean again. If you think you've already done the work of clearing your limiting beliefs and shadows, but you are still not prospering, my friend, go back. You haven't cleaned everything. You missed a spot. You have to find the root. This is the path. First, you believe. You see yourself having it. You feel it. Feeling is the first step. Second, you go after the environment. You physically access it. You taste it. You normalize it. And third, you start accessing the opportunities. You receive them. You notice them. And you clean the beliefs that scream, I can't, I don't know how, or I don't deserve this, when the moment of truth arrives. When you combine these three factors, environment, mindset, and access, you develop magnetism. You become magnetic. You start attracting money literally. Things flow with absurd ease because you are no longer fighting the current. You are the current. You are aligned with that frequency. So, to summarize everything we've discussed today into a single actionable truth, if you want to conquer something, simply imagine what it would be like if you already had it. That's it. It is that simple, and it is that easy. The only reason people fail is because of a belief system buried deep inside their minds. It is their paradigm. I can say this to you, and you might hear it, nod your head, and 2 minutes later think, well, it's easy for them to say. Or worse, I tried that once and it didn't work, or this isn't for me. That is your shadow talking. That is the barrier. This knowledge is incredibly basic, yet it remains a secret to so many because their psychological shadow blocks it from entering. It gives them reasons to stay stuck. But look at the people who have applied this. Look at the people who gave themselves a chance, who suspended their disbelief and just tried it. Look at whether or not they are prospering. I am living proof of this. I broke free from years of debt, not by winning the lottery, but by understanding access, mindset, and environment. You can do this too. I want you to remember that this is a material reality we live in. Prospering in the material world means being freer. It means having the freedom to choose the experiences you want. It means generating stability for your family and liberating yourself from the fear of survival. Don't let the matrix dictate your frequency. You have the hand on the dial. Turn it. If you found value in this video, if something clicked for you today, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We are going to keep going deeper into how to master your frequency and escape the scarcity trap. Give yourself the permission to access the life you actually want. I'll see you in the next video. Until then.